You've said that test and trace is vital to stopping the spread of the virus. We've heard reports from some contact tracers that since they started work in England last Thursday, they've had very little, if anything, to do. What do you think is actually happening with the system?
Thanks, Hugh. I'll say something and then I'll ask John to add to that. The system is up and running. It's successful. I'm very glad to report that those who are asked to isolate by the contact tracers are expressing the willingness to do so, and we track that very carefully. Now, one of the pieces of good news is that as the rate of incidence of new cases comes down, so of course there are fewer index cases to track, and we've hired, as you know, 25,000 people to work as contact tracers, and the level of incidence of disease has come down, and so actually we have more capacity than we need. This is a good thing.
Yes, thank you, Secretary of State. So exactly, the test and trace program is working well. The data are flowing from the testing portal into the contact tracing software, which is all have been built relatively new. So we're very pleased to see that all working well, and the contacts are being identified. There are different levels. There's the clinical public health level, which looks at more complicated cases, for example, those arising in care homes or in outbreaks of some sort. And then there are cases where people can, in fact, enter their own contact details on the web-based portal. So that doesn't require the intervention of one of the call handlers, the contact tracers. And then there are those who need to be contacted by the contact tracers. And there are plenty of cases and contacts being reported and being pursued in all three of those areas. So they are all working, and they're all working well. But as Secretary of State says, we do have a lot of capacity. We're very grateful for all those people who have come forward to work as contact tracers. And at the moment, many of them are not fully occupied, but we wait and see. One of the challenges, of course, of this is to build a system that can respond to whatever comes in the future. And that is a little difficult to predict. We think there will be flare-ups in different parts of the country, and we'll need to be able to divert resources as required. But we wait and see. But at the moment, it is working. It's working well.
Around 9,000 people have tested positive for COVID-19 since Test and Trace was launched last week. How many have been contacted by a contact tracer, and how many of their contacts have been traced?
So I don't have those figures. I'll ask John to answer, but the answer is the vast majority, and of course many of them are able to put the details in on a web-based portal rather than directly on the phone.
Well, the figures are going to be available soon, but as Secretary of State says, the numbers of tests feeding through and contacts being identified are high, and so we're very pleased with the level of completeness. So it's operating really pretty much as we had hoped. Of course, of the numbers of new cases, not all of them need to go into the contact tracing process. So if it's a case in a care home of somebody who's already part of a known outbreak, or if the case indeed is already known to the Public Health Service, then they don't need to be contact traced. But of those who are being contact traced, a very high proportion of people are working with us to use the web-based system themselves, or to provide us with the information. So we're really very pleased. And the numbers are, as we know, we did a trial in the Isle of Wight, where we had some expectations from that. And Secretary of State, you said the numbers of contacts are less than we had expected. That's really less than what the modelers had in their models on which they were using to base the effectiveness. They're actually quite similar to the numbers that we were expecting from the Isle of Wight, because in lockdown, of course, people do not have that many close contacts outside their household. So the system is working well, and we will be publishing some figures soon. I know everyone's very keen to see them.